hey, check 1 2, hey, check, check, yada yada yada. Hello, please welcome to the stage. Blah blah blah. Little check 1 2. Check hey, hey, hey. Check 1 2, hey, check, check. Check 1 2, check hey, hey, hey. Check 1 2. Check, hey. Oops, sorry. Check hey, hey, hey. Check 1 2, hey, hey. Check 1 2. Check, hey, hey. Check 1 2. Check hey. Coming through the TVs, gotcha. I believe it's the remote control that's on the back of the TVs. Check, hey, hey, hey. Check 1 2. Yeah. Let me know when you want me to go. Those TVs are crazy loud. Check 1, hey, hey. Check 1 2, hey, hey. Check.
Good morning. All right, good. Here you go, sir.
Okay.
So you'll just turn
Yeah.
easy peasy, and then Kirsten, Jim, Mayor Kessler.
Yeah, good
Easy
stuff.
peasy.
And the covered award doesn't know?
He does not know.
Good.
Yes.
Oh, good.
Or neither does Brad, but because I thought Jim would be here practicing, but he didn't.
Oh.
He's winging it
Oh, he's out.
with everyone else today.
It's fine.
Yeah,
It's fine.
it's fine. Okay.
So we'll do this. Is there anything else that you need?
No.
Okay.
When you bring a program up with you and let them know that it's wrapping paper on the back?
Yes, I will.
Okay, perfect.
I should grab one.
Kirsten has one right there too if you don't go back out there. So
Cool.
cool. I'm gonna make sure we can get the keynote in. They're working on that now. And we'll
She's
do-
remote, right?
She's remote.
Okay, great.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Sweet. I
Okay.
think it's gonna be.
It's gonna be great.
It's gonna be great.
It's gonna be great.
Okay, I'll take a look at things.
Okay.
Check. Hey, hey, 1, 2. Hey, 1, 2. Hey, hey, 1. Hey, 1. Hey, hey, 1, 2. You can hear me okay? Dana, can you hear me okay, Dana? You can't hear me at all? Check, 1, 2. Can you hear me now, Dana? Is that right? Dana, can you hear me now? Oh, perfect. I like a smile. Check, 1, 2. All right, give us a second. We're doing some last minute adjustments. Thank you for your patience. And that's a test. Speaker, yeah. Can you see it now? Looks like you are. Dana, can you talk to us for just a second?
Sure, it's great to hear your voice this morning. I promise the sun will rise. It won't be in my eye like this.
Well, thanks. We can hear you great now. We appreciate it. Just say a few more things. I'll let my sound guy play around a little bit.
Good, I hope you can hear me. Thanks for having me here remotely.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and hand the microphone over to Amanda from MORPC.
Great.
Hey Dana, how are you?
I'm doing well, Amanda.
Awesome. Are you gonna share? Do you have a PowerPoint?
I do.
Okay. Do you want to share it just to make sure that we can see it?
Yes, please. Oh, you share my screen, or I see.
Yeah, you share yours.
I share my screen, or he just,
Oh, it's good. Yeah.
except that, let me see, because I have two screens, so is there a way for you to choose? There you go. Can you see? But now I can't see myself.
One second.
Let's try that again, because I can put that up there.
Perfect. Okay, Dana, we can see it. If you want to put it in PowerPoint.
And let me just, do you see a slide, gray to green? Okay, and then the book.
Yeah, it looks
Okay.
great.
And will they see me while they see this?
Yep, we can see you just like in a normal Zoom, just up in the corner.
Oh, great. Okay.
Okay? So you're just gonna hang out until you'll be introduced by Mr. Ty Marsh. You can turn your camera off until you're ready to go. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great. And so as soon as they're ready for me, I'll just start sharing my screen at that point.
That works.
Okay, great. Thanks.
All right, thank you. We'll see you soon.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Well, just since we didn't, I don't. Well, William steps here. He speaks first. Am I under the?
Welcome to the 2021 Summit on Sustainability. Please welcome to the stage MORPC Executive Director, William Murdoch.
Good morning, everybody. Oh, come on. You've had your coffee. I saw you. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Summit on Sustainability. I'm William Murdoch. I'm the Executive Director of the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission. All of you just know us as MORPC. On behalf of our board, our team, and the more than 70 local governments, many of whom are here, that make up MORPC, I want to thank you for coming out today. We have a really great day ahead. You've seen the agenda. We've got wonderful speakers from all across the region and some from across the nation talking about best practices, sustainability. Our theme today is moving forward together, and that's what we're about. When we think about a world that's constantly changing and unpredictable, sustainability can't wait, so we need to work together to keep things advancing. I also want to thank my team at MORPC today. They put a lot of thought into developing the program today. It has everything: panel discussions around greenways or energy, sessions to explore neighborhood redevelopment. We have a keynote, we have Pechacuchas, we have water infrastructure discussed, and so much more. You know that collaboration and partnerships, what MORPC focuses on. We strongly believe that to be a resilient region, we have to work together across any divide that we see. And so we know that the best way to do this is to learn from each other, to come up with ideas with each other, and to move forward. I'm going to share more later in the program about all the great work that MORPC is working on with you and your communities. But for now, let's focus on those who made today possible. So I know you've seen many of the sponsors on the screens before you, before the session started. A large event like this just doesn't happen without their commitment, their leadership, and their support. I especially want to thank our presenting sponsor, the Solid Waste Authority of Central Ohio. Their friends just call them SWACO, for their generosity and continued commitment for sustainability, especially their leader, Ty Marsh. Let's give them a round of applause for making today happen. And make sure you stay around for lunch because Ty's on the program, so we're looking forward to that. I also want to thank our program sponsors, The Ohio State University, and for our Bobcats out there, our network sponsor, The Ohio University. So let's give them both a round of applause. All right, enough with the announcements. Let's kick off the summit. We now want to recognize outstanding leaders with our Regional Sustainability Awards. So please join me in welcoming MORPC's Director of Planning and Sustainability, Dr. Kirsten Carr, Chair of our Sustainability Committee, the incomparable Jim Schimmer, and Vice Chair and Mayor of Bexley, Ben Kessler. Let's welcome them to the stage.
All right, good morning, everyone. I'm so excited that I get to kick off the award ceremony today. As William mentioned, my name is Kirsten Carr. I'm the Director of Planning and Sustainability here at MORPC, and I'm really honored today to present the Leadership in Sustainability Award. This award recognizes an individual or entity exemplifying outstanding leadership and innovation in seeking comprehensive sustainability solutions to address key challenges facing the region. And of all the nominations received, we are happy to announce that the award goes to our friend Jim Schimmer, the Director of Economic Development and Planning.
Jim is a leader in our region when it comes to sustainability. He's somebody who connects economic and community development in a way that helps to improve the environment and make us better.
Jim's been involved in any number of different initiatives that have had a really critical impact.
He's currently the chair of the Sustainability Advisory Committee. He's led and initiated the Franklin County Energy Study and is really engaged with the Rickenbacker area as well right now.
People like Jim Schimmer are the catalyst and reason why Central Ohio is not what it was 10 or 20 years ago.
Under Jim's leadership, MORPC and partners across Central Ohio crafted the first ever regional sustainability agenda. This sets our priorities and helps us measure our progress on difficult environmental issues.
I think Jim is all about public service, wanting to have a positive impact in the community and leave our community a better place when he leaves it.
You know, Jim is both passionate and compassionate. He's truly a public servant who wants to make sure that everyone in Central Ohio has a high quality of life.
If you talk to him about any economic development project issue, it's almost like when you talk to people and they talk about their children and they get all excited and tell you everything. He gets like that about economic development projects, which shows how passionate he is.
I think that Jim also has a lot of faith in people, and he will support folks when others maybe have not, and found himself, frankly, being proved correct time and time again. So that's one of the great things that I really appreciate about Jim.
He's our guy. Jim's done a great job and well deserving of this award. Certainly deserves congratulations, and I expect much more from him.
And so when we think about Jim and we think about his legacy to sustainability in Central Ohio, his legacy doesn't just shine, you might just say it shimmers.
Whoa. I don't know where they found that many people to talk good about me. It's a pretty amazing thing. I have enjoyed, have to tell you, this immensely, and it's been a great thing. I appreciate that, and we know that going into the future, we have great leadership with Mayor Ben Kessler, who's going to carry this forward. It is not about one individual, it is about all of us. We breathe the same air, we drink the same water, and it's meaningful to all of us. So thanks very much, everybody. I have a great honor this morning as chair of the Sustainability Advisory Committee. I'm honored today to present the Collaborative Achievement in Sustainability Award. This award recognizes a group of entities, individuals who have shown effectiveness in producing environmental accomplishments through collaboration, effort, the tangible results, innovation, and the long-term impacts on Central Ohio. Of all the nominations that we've received, one rose to the top. We're excited to announce the award goes to Rapid 5. With the members of ULI and MORPC that were involved developing Rapid 5, please join us on stage. I think of this award as being meaningful for the long term. This is not necessarily for all of us, but it's going to be for our children. It's up to us to try and execute, but I think the key thing here is that we have been given a gift by the professionals in economic development planning in Central Ohio and landscape design that we cannot ignore. So let's start to implement. Thank you.
Congratulations to ULI and MORPC for that award. And to Jim Schimmer, of course. Good work. Good morning, everybody. I am Mayor Ben Kessler, Vice Chair of the Sustainability Advisory Committee, and I'm honored to give the Leadership and Mobility Award today. In memory of William A. Bill Lewis, Jr., former Chief Mobility Engineer of the City of Columbus. The Leadership and Mobility Award recognizes an individual who exemplifies outstanding work towards creating a world-class multimodal transportation system for Central Ohio. And I will tell you, the individual that's being recognized today is so deserving. I know that I and little postage stamp size Bexley have really benefited from the partnership of this individual. We're happy to announce that this year's Leadership and Mobility Award goes to Brad Westall, City of Columbus, Recreation and Parks. Brad, please join us on stage.
If you have traveled on one of the many greenways trails through the Columbus Park system, Brad Westall is certainly among those you can thank. As a greenways planner for the City of Columbus Department of Recreation and Parks, Brad has been the mastermind behind many sections of the Olentangy Trail, Alum Creek Trail, Scioto Trail, and others. In fact, Brad has been instrumental in the planning, funding, design, and construction of miles of trails throughout Central Ohio. He has worked collaboratively and creatively with partner agencies and neighborhood groups to connect the people of Columbus to parkland, and because of the expansion of the trail network as a transportation system, the entire Central Ohio region is better connected. In recent years, Brad has shifted his focus to equity. He knows that trails provide transportation options and improve mobility, and he's using them to connect many groups of people in Central Ohio that have historically been underserved. Therefore, Brad works tirelessly to integrate trails into these neighborhoods to improve health, quality of life, and mobility for all Central Ohioans. So, while Brad's primary focus of his trail building over the years likely has been for recreation, he has truly been instrumental in connecting people to the places they want to go. For these reasons and more, Brad is worthy of the 2021 Leadership and Mobility Award.
Good morning. I am Robert Williams, Director of Residential Services at MORPC. I would like to congratulate all award recipients for the Regional Sustainability Awards. At this time, I would like to welcome to the stage Ty Marsh, Executive Director at Solid Waste Authority of Central Ohio since 2013. Since then, Mr. Marsh has restored trust in the authority by shoring up its finances, rebuilding its relationships with community partners, and restoring public accountability. As Executive Director, Mr. Marsh has overseen and led SWACO's operations through a transformational and strategic process, resulting in an enhanced focus on the authority's public mission, service to customers, and operational efficiency and effectiveness. Under Mr. Marsh's leadership, SWACO has reduced administrative costs and expanded community diversion programming while reducing the cost to safely dispose of waste at the Franklin County Sanitary Landfill. SWACO serves Franklin County and neighboring areas with solutions of solid waste. Their mission is simple: reduce reliance on landfills. We cannot thank SWACO enough for being the presenting sponsor of the Summit of Sustainability. Join me in welcoming Ty Marsh.
Central Ohio is a lot of things: beautiful, productive, innovative, and now more than ever, sustainable. At SWACO, we're creating a greener Franklin County by helping local communities across the solid waste district provide recycling carts to their residents, by showing businesses and organizations new ways to hit their sustainability goals, by helping schools, municipalities, and hospitals get better prices on recycling and disposal, by working with partners to find better ways to compost food waste, and to power thousands of homes with renewable solar energy. Why does this matter? Because recycling helps more than the environment. It fuels the economy, supporting hundreds of businesses and thousands of jobs in Central Ohio alone. And SWACO continues to raise the bar with a plan to increase diversion rates to 75%, reduce emissions by 64%, and generate both millions in tax revenues and hundreds of millions in capital investments. We can create a greener Central Ohio, a more productive economy, and a brighter, more sustainable future if we all move forward together. To find out how you can get involved, go to swaco.org.
Thank you, Robert, for the introduction, and good morning, everyone. That video was dedicated to Jim Shimmer. He not only shines, he shimmers. I think, William, I think you should have got an award for that line. That's incredible. SWACO has a longstanding commitment to sustainability in Central Ohio, and we're so pleased and proud to be sponsoring today's summit. In fact, as I look around the room, I see so many of our partners among us. From doubling residential recycling rates to cutting food waste in school cafeterias and taking action to protect our climate, our work together is making a difference. It wasn't that long ago that most people only associated waste reduction and sustainability as efforts that were solely good for the environment. But today, we know that when the public and the private sectors work together to achieve sustainability goals, our communities become more resilient and our economy is strengthened. In fact, today's keynote speaker has touched on many of these themes in her work and writings. Dana Bordelin is Vice President for Environment at the JPB Foundation. Before becoming Vice President of the Environment Program at JPB, Dana was Vice President for Green Initiatives for Enterprise Community Partners, a nonprofit dedicated to making well-designed homes affordable. She developed and oversaw all aspects of Enterprise's Green Communities program, including the creation of the Green Communities criteria and Enterprise's multifamily retrofit program. Dana Bordelin is also the author of Gray to Green Communities, a call to action on the housing and climate crisis. In her book, she argues that we need to move away from a gray housing model to a green model, which considers the health and well-being of residents, their communities, and the planet. She demonstrates that we do not have to choose between protecting our planet and providing housing affordable to all, and I can't wait to hear from her. Please join me in welcoming Dana Bordelin.
Good morning. Can you hear me and see me?
We can see you and hear you. You're good to begin.
Oh, great. Sorry about that. That was probably then a very awkward silence, but it's terrific to be with you all today. And thank you so much for letting me join you virtually. And I'm so pleased to know that you all are gathering in person. JPB Foundation is still working remotely, and I can't wait for the day when we can all be together. So I'm sure you're enjoying that experience. And I've always had a soft spot in my heart for Ohio. Actually, my ancestors came to this country from Germany to Virginia and then settled in Ohio, not not in the mid-Ohio region, unfortunately. I think they were just adjacent over in Clark County. But nevertheless, I always enjoy coming to Ohio and have certainly had many visits over my life to Ohio. So it's great to be with you virtually today. Maybe a little bit about myself before I get started. I moved around a ton as a kid. By the time I was 17, I had moved 11 times, primarily because my parents were looking for places that they could afford. And this experience drove me to want to study planning, want to understand how these decisions are made. Why are some communities flourishing and work well for everybody, and why don't others? Because I certainly had that experience that some neighborhoods and houses that I lived in weren't healthy, maybe weren't conducive to the way we needed to live, while others were terrific. And I have fond memories and remember feeling healthy and vibrant living there. And so it drove me to want to study planning and eventually join, as was said earlier, the Enterprise Community Partners to really work on these issues of housing affordability. And so I'm excited to share my screen here with you, if you bear with me for a second. Hopefully you're seeing that. So I'm going to speak a little bit about what's going on in our country in terms of the need to really address the housing and climate crises together. I spent about 10 years working to green all the affordable housing in this country. And during the course of time, I really wanted to write a book because there were just tremendous people across the country working to do just that. And so I set out to tell their story as a way of thanking them for their contribution to things that we all benefit from. But I had then joined the JPB Foundation in 2012 and put my writing aside. But over the course of my tenure at JPB, I decided I needed to pick this up and continue to tell this story because the issues of our time demand something different from us, something that requires us to think differently about the way that we're developing in this country and the way that we're delivering housing and communities. And so I had the opportunity to finish writing the book and publish it earlier this year. Let's see. Sorry, I'm having a little difficulty. There we go. So the book is really about making quantum leaps in equitably addressing these dual crises of climate change and housing affordability in one fell swoop, as I like to say, by going gray to green. And it's important to say, although I imagine from what I just heard, most of you in the room already know that we're at an extraordinary point in human history. The people who had the very least to do with creating the housing and climate crises, many of whom are children and young adults and seniors, they're facing the impacts of both on a daily basis. And it's traumatic because you don't know from day to day when that rug is going to get completely pulled out from under your feet. We've seen this over the last 18 months, what it means to suddenly be evicted from your home or experience wildfires encroaching on your backyard or to see water rising in your basement. These are everyday occurrences for many people who have experiencing both the impacts of climate change and housing insecurity. The problem, as I see it, is that the way we're producing and preserving housing in this country is just not meeting demand. It is also at odds with our collective need to take action to curb carbon emissions. 20% of carbon emissions in the United States actually stem from heating, cooling, and powering our homes, making our homes the world's 6th largest emitter of greenhouse gas emissions, comparable to a country like Brazil, more than a country like Germany. Let's just think about that for a moment. And even if the entire electrical grid was decarbonized, it would be insufficient to reducing carbon emissions to a level that would avoid even more severe impacts than what we are experiencing now. Because half of all the housing in the United States is at least 50 years old, if not older. And the people living in those older homes will continue using energy inefficiently from the fossil fuels, and if we don't intervene. So not only does this have a price in terms of the cost of disasters, but it traps people in obsolete homes, paying higher utility bills. And when I say people, I should be very clear that these are people who are already paying more than 50% of their income for their rent or their mortgage. And they're people who are already having to make these untenable choices between food or fuel, mortgage or medicine, let alone simply having fun with their family. As one woman I know likes to say, well, doesn't like to say, but has been known to say, during electric bill week, they eat cheap. And because of our history of racialized land use policies and racist housing practices, these are majority Black, Indigenous, and persons of color. And we also know that on any given night, 500,000 people are without a home altogether, weathering storms, weathering pandemics, and work schedules from these makeshift dwellings, not because they're bad people, but because our systems have failed. We have collectively failed. And so let me just speak to this slide for a second. I included a few websites on here. The financial burden, if you're interested in learning more about that, I would recommend going to acEEE.org. They produce a lot of reports on this issue, stating that low-income households spend 3.5 times more of their income on energy costs compared to non-low-income households. And in their most recent report, they cite that the East North Central region of the US, which of course includes Ohio, has one of the highest energy burdens. Households are paying 9.1% of their income for energy. But the problem with gray is also, as I noted, that it generates pollution. It's not just the outdoor pollution, it's also indoor pollution. As we saw over the last 18 months, when we're spending a large amount of time inside our homes, if the materials in our homes are toxic, which many of them are, and older homes have exposures to lead paint, then we're at greater risk for health triggers such as asthma or lead poisoning. And we saw lead poisoning rates increase over COVID. But also our older homes are just inadequate. Even our new conventional homes are inadequate for the climate chaos that's ensuing. We're just not ready for it. And as one report from Climate Central put out, these issues are being exacerbated. They're getting worse. And this example from Columbus shows that the hot city temperatures have serious health impacts, including heat stress during heat waves and dangerous ground level ozone levels on the hottest days of the year. We have to address these issues in both building more green housing and really paying attention to how we're doing that. So here's how we can make that quantum leap together in addressing these issues. It's a roadmap is the Green Communities criteria, and it requires using them for every housing and construction type. The criteria are a set of principles that allow us to think differently about the way we're delivering housing. They have 8 main buckets of including integrative design, location and neighborhood fabric, site improvements, water, operating energy, materials that are beneficial to the environment and to humans, a healthy living environment. And probably one of the more important elements of the criteria is paying attention to the way we're operating and maintaining the housing and engaging with the people living there so that they can do the same. We just don't have the time or the resources to meet our housing crisis without considering how to meet our climate crisis. And I propose that we do both at the same time. Think of it this way. Gray housing connotes practices that benefit a few in the short term, but negatively impact the majority of us in our planet. Whereas green housing connotes practices that benefit all of us while supporting the health of our planet now and for the long term. And let me speak to the image that you see here. This is a development on the west side of Seattle, and hopefully you can tell that in the forefront there's a small body of water. This is a detention pond for capturing the runoff when there is a rain event. And this development was planning on just installing regular gray infrastructure, big pipes that would collect the water. But when they took a step back and thought differently about what they might be able to do on this site, they created this detention pond that not only had a functional use, but it then became an amenity for the whole neighborhood and the surrounding neighborhoods. As you can see, hopefully there's a walking path around this pond that has become an attraction for the entire community. And by doing this, by not spending the money on the gray infrastructure, they saved money and they were able to provide more housing, more affordably for more people. This is what I get excited about, that if we change our way of thinking and we work together to do this, we can do more and we can do it a lot better. An example of green housing, how green housing is better and more affordable than gray housing, is also illustrated by Tracy, who was a nursing student who had just moved into Guadalupe Saldana development when I met her. But Tracy didn't know her new development was green. She just knew that she could afford it. Her utility bills were less than half what they were in her previous gray apartment because it was energy efficient and it relied on solar to generate electricity and heat the water. And her son was sleeping through the night, which meant that Tracy could study a lot better and do better in school. He was sleeping through the night because his asthma was not getting triggered in the home, because the home contained healthy materials and had the right type of mechanical ventilation and air circulation. And you might be thinking that this remarkable health outcome is my main point, but it's not. My main point is that her home was affordable. That's why Tracy moved there. And then she realized these health benefits and the additional affordability that comes from low utility bills. Most people are just looking for housing they can afford, just like my parents and probably you and yours. And it shouldn't be up to luck or to a zip code that, for who gets to benefit from these other co-benefits of developing green. I'll never forget walking into another home. This one was owned by Bernice in Baltimore. And I walked in and there was a table of trophies. It was amazing. And I asked Bernice what these trophies were for. And they were for her young daughter, now in high school, who had become a track star and really developed a love for running. But what Bernice went on to tell me is that that wasn't always the case, that her young daughter was often not able to go to school because of her asthma. She was getting triggered by various elements of her own home that were preventing her from this joy she would later find from running once her house was weatherized and was improved and she had better windows, better air circulation, and the things that we know can certainly make us healthy. So it's not just new construction. We need to do a better job with all the existing housing. What I also love, and this happens time and time again when developers transition to green, is that the neighborhood is improved. With Tracy's story, that community had been a dumping ground for that part of Austin. But the community rallied and decided that they wanted more from their neighborhood. And they created a community land trust so that the homes would always be affordable. And this former dumping ground was now a wonderful new green space with a biofiltration pond. When I was there visiting Tracy, I walked out of her home and was immediately in this nice green space, which we now know after the 18 months of living through COVID and staying in our homes, that this access to nature is really important for our mental health and well-being. This example illustrates that when we meet our housing needs with green housing, we achieve a double bottom line. through these co-benefits of improved health for people and the planet. And I use this example because we often think of green affordable housing as an output, a better product, but it's a better process, an integrative and holistic one that extracts less harm and delivers more benefits across the entire process, from the energy production to materials manufacturing, to transporting those materials to the job site, to where those materials end up, and ultimately how the whole process can improve people's lives and the communities and planet we share. This image, hopefully, that you see is another great story of a community that was sort of typically what I guess we call in planning speak, not in my backyard. The community absolutely didn't want more housing, and there was a derelict site that had been sort of left alone and discarded, that an affordable housing developer was trying to get passed to allow them to create affordable housing on it. Typical of what happens in many communities, that the affordable housing developers sort of get the leftover housing site, leftover parcels of land, and this was no different. But what came of this, the community rallying against any more housing, they eventually changed their mind as they began to understand what the developer was going to do with that site. And as you can see, it was an opportunity for the developer to transform this old derelict site, restore a wetland into a functioning wetland that now allowed spaces for children to play, and with the community center on site to allow seniors in the neighborhood to interact with the children and for them all to learn about this natural space. And the housing all met the Green Communities criteria. What I love is that the community who was so opposed to the development are now on the side of YIMBYs, of yes in my backyard, because they see that this type of development not only benefits the people living in it, but it's better for all of us. There are many examples of how our transition from gray to green communities addresses the climate crisis. But perhaps the most talked about example is that by meeting the Green Communities criteria, we know the housing is more energy efficient. And I know this because I was part of the team that created the Green Communities Offset Fund. And we literally followed what is known as the gold standard. It's used around the world to measure and verify carbon emissions reductions. We did this with developments that met the Green Communities criteria. And also, green communities are smartly located, as you can see here, which results in a reduction of emissions associated with vehicle trips and more green space and more trees planted. In addition, the Green Communities criteria call for using building materials that do not contain the toxic byproducts and feedstocks of the fossil fuel industry. This is the most under-discussed and under-acknowledged part of the climate conversation. It's part of the reason why I felt an urgent need to finish the book about going gray to green. Our production of petrochemicals that get put into our building materials like adhesives, carpets, cabinets, and insulation are not only causing climate change, but the pollution from that manufacturing process doesn't just go up directly into the atmosphere. It pollutes the air outside and inside the homes and schools of the people who live nearby. I actually had the opportunity about 8 years ago to wear a bracelet. It was called Exposome, and it was a silicone bracelet, but it was able to detect toxic chemicals. And I wore it for a week. And I live a pretty green life. I buy organic food. I wasn't too concerned. But myself and the 57 other people who were in the study, 27 other people who were in the study, were all surprised, and I certainly was, by just how many persistent bioaccumulative toxic chemicals I was being exposed to in my own home. And we can do better. We know we can. You may have heard the term embodied carbon. It may sound like a good thing. I certainly thought it was a good thing, like a snow globe, because if it's embodied, it can't pollute, but it's actually not, as I'm sure you all know. It's a very big problem. Embodied carbon represents the carbon emissions associated with making building products and construction from raw material extraction to manufacturing, transportation, and end-of-life disposal or recycling. Embodied carbon represents a significant amount of annual global greenhouse gas emissions, and yet there's incredible opportunity for embodied carbon reduction through material selection and specification and through design. It just takes a new way of thinking about how we're doing this work and an integrative design approach to make different choices. The framework for doing this already exists, as I said, with the Green Communities criteria. It's the only standard for green affordable housing. It's part of what is required, or actually not required, but incentivized through your own state housing finance agency when it allocates its low-income housing tax credits. This should be the type of development we're requiring for all housing. The criteria has evolved over the last 15 years in response to new evidence, advancements in technology, and input from practitioners and residents. It's evidence-based with proven methods and materials that do not cost more. It's tried and tested in over 130,000 homes, many of which are in Ohio, in the mid-Ohio region as well. And it's endorsed by important stakeholders like your finance agency. And it's the basis of Fannie Mae's green financing loans, making Fannie Mae a leader in the multifamily green financing market because they know it's good business and they're not afraid to underwrite the cost savings that result from green construction. And this is an example right here, I should say right there where you are in Columbus, and hopefully some of you are more familiar with this development than I am. But what I love about the Green Communities criteria when developers get exposed to it and start thinking differently is exactly exemplified in this quote here on the slide. The new development will help revitalize Columbus's downtown Linden neighborhood while creating a healthy living environment, offering seniors independent living and social connections. The Mulvey Place architects enjoyed working with the 2020 Green Communities criteria so much that they have decided to adopt many of the criteria's requirements as standard practice for all their senior living and affordable housing developments. And this happens a lot. Once you learn how to think differently, you don't go back. It just becomes part of what you do on a daily basis. And I should say this development, as far as I understand it, is a mix of housing types and a mix of affordable housing. And we definitely all need to work together to provide more of that. So this work, as I've said, is very personal to me. I used to be uncertain, though, about all of this, particularly whether green could really be affordable. In 2004, when I was part of the team creating the very first version of the criteria, I remember being told to keep it very loose, create just a 5-point checklist. But what I learned talking to developers already delivering green housing affordably was that green was possible in a comprehensive way, and it was healthier and it was better for people and the planet. But even after a big event that we hosted in 2012, where we gathered several hundred people to see what it would take to make all housing green, I recall the tremendous pressure from the public to instead move on and get back to the business of keeping first cost low and total cost per square foot as low as possible. After all, don't people just need a roof over their head? I disagree wholeheartedly, and today I'm not uncertain. I know this is the right approach because we have more evidence and we have more technical know-how. And it is why I decided to finish writing this book that I had started back in 2012. It has become imperative that we make a transition from gray to green because we must stop locking people into obsolete housing they cannot afford that puts them in harm's way while doing nothing to address the climate chaos. Because when we pollute to make our cheap materials and dirty energy, that pollution affects all of us now and for generations to come. So I'm not uncertain, but it's not about me or any one individual. It's about what we can do together. And when I was preparing to speak with you today, I read the tremendous reports and plans that you all have put together, and it's really exciting and encouraging the Link US Rapid 5, the MORPC's regional housing study, and the sustainability agenda. I just can't applaud you enough for where you're heading. But I want to leave you with one thought. As I was reading the executive summary of the housing strategy, it said this: the Central Ohio Regional Housing Strategy sets forth a bold vision, a future where growth and recovery help realize more equity among Central Ohioans, not less. Housing where it is built or maintained, who it is for, and how it is priced can be a platform to achieve this vision. But I'd like to encourage you to think about how. How are you developing that housing? How are you developing your communities? And think about transitioning from a gray approach to a green one. The opportunity to change the course of human history actually is in our grasp. We can provide housing for all of us while reducing carbon emissions, strengthening the fabric of our communities, and improving the overall health and well-being of people and the planet. We must recognize the tremendous opportunity of doing so in environmentally beneficial ways, while delivering on a fundamental human right to housing, without which there can be no justice. So I implore us to use our tools, our power, our influence to make it happen. It's certainly within our grasp to do so. So thank you very much for letting me join you today and share my story.
Let's give Dana another round of applause. I know she can hear us, so. Dana, we wished we could have had you here in person, but we appreciate your words so much. I know I talked to a number of folks before the event who've read your book, who are thinking about how to incorporate this into their practices. And I think we couldn't agree with you more. Having Robert Williams up here, who's our residential services director, that's exactly what we believe in MORPC, is incorporating sustainability and affordability when we think about housing. So thank you again. All right, so we have many breakout sessions for you, but I have the pleasure of giving you a couple of very specific logistic updates. The first one, it's really exciting. CODA has brought their all-electric bus. It'll be out front before the hotel here until about 10 o'clock, as I understand it. So we are really excited. If you want to sneak out there just to take a look at the all-electric bus, we appreciate that. The second thing, all of the valuable details that you need are here about today in your program, but what you might not have figured out yet, it's wrapping paper, so you can reuse it. And, right? I know, it's pretty cool. And Jim Schimmer told me to tell you he'd love to see gifts to him in this. So Also, if you parked, the hotel tells us, if you parked your car in this alley behind me, you need to move it because it may be in the way. So just one last little bit of logistics. So again, take a look here. All of the program and sessions are in here. We have great sessions starting for you at 10 o'clock and at 11:15. 11:15 is when the second round starts. If you're trying to find your way around and you need help, ask me, ask any of our MORPC team. But remember this, Burkhart A and B rooms are right there. So just go over there. If you're not in a session with a Burkhart room, it's upstairs on the next floor. So Burkhart there, everything else upstairs. If you need professional credits, I'm AICP. I know a number of you need credits too. Sign-in sheets are available at each breakout session. Don't forget to do that and ask us for help. And that's all of the logistics. We're so excited to have you here. Go enjoy the breakout sessions, see our booths, and we'll see you in the sessions at 10 and back here at 12:30. Thanks, everybody.